No, I think the way you worded that is really good. I think that's really one of the best uses of evidence, and that is to put it out there and show, hey, how does your worldview account for this? And to get them to really pause in the question, as some would say, put a stone in their shoe. They even if they walk away, they'll be stepping on the stone later on. That's going to be bugging them and maybe challenge their thinking, which will get to the heart issue ultimately. And I think that's a great understanding of what evidence-based apologetics really is. And so yeah, there are so many of those. I'll give you a couple of them. I mentioned dinosaurs earlier. We did some digging for dinosaur bones over in Montana a couple weeks ago. I had a great time doing it. We found a T-Rex tooth. It's so funny. We found it. We cleaned it up and everything. I say my friends were doing it, but after they got done, they cleaned it, they polished it. It looked really cool. I said, hey, can I hold that? And the lady looked at me. She said, well, you can, but it's worth like $3,000. Be really careful. I was like, okay. Like, yeah, I did hold it. It was really neat. Um, but yeah, no. So one example of just great evidence confirming the Bible is the fact that we find soft tissue from dinosaurs still intact in their bones. We literally find this all over the world. We're finding it over and over and over again. It's literally soft tissue. It's still pliable. It's still stretchy. Oftentimes there are blood vessels and red blood cells still intact in that tissue. And those organic remnants, just like our flesh, they're made of mostly water. And they should not last hundreds of years after the creature's death. Maybe thousands in special conditions, like after a flood, but no way millions. It's a great confirmation of the biblical timescale. And so that one, because that soft tissue just should not be there in their worldview. So it really is a great stone in their shoe, get them to question their worldview. Other things, like the James Webb Telescope, where you see all these findings coming in. It's really cool. People can check out our website. We got some stuff on this, but also Dr. Jason Lyle from the Biblical Science Institute. He made a whole list of predictions before they started receiving pictures from the new telescope. And he said, we'll see this that will confirm the biblical worldview. And I predict also this is how they'll respond, the secularists, to reject what's clearly in front of them. And he's been dead on, just dead on. One example is he predicted that they would find, as he looked further out in space, that they would find mature, fully formed galaxies. And that's what we find. And it's blowing secular minds because in their worldview, when they're looking out in space with this really powerful telescope, they think they're looking back in time based on multiple faulty assumptions. So they think they're looking back in time. So they think they're looking back to closer to the beginning of the Big Bang. So in their minds, if they're looking back in time, then galaxies can't be mature. Those should be these nebulous blobs that are coming together. It should be something like that. Definitely not mature. What are they finding? Mature universes. Like God made them that way from the beginning. And it's blowing their mind. They just shouldn't be there. And so you find stuff like that. And we're finding it again and again. And if you watch the headlines as they find more stuff deeper in space, you'll see headlines like new find counters old ideas, or this makes evolutionists rethink their whole claim, or we got to rethink galaxy evolution. You'll find all these headlines because it really counters what they expected rooted in their worldview. That's great evidence. Now, again, they'll find a way to explain it away, but it's a great confirmation. It can be used to challenge their worldview and open a door for a good conversation to get to the gospel. And then things like I'm going to the Grand Canyon next week, and we're going to be talking about rock layers and fossils. And I do a whole talk on rock layers and fossils here at the museum quite often at the Ark Encounter. And it's amazing. The features of rocks and fossils scream a rapid recent formation. You look between the rock layers, there are no signs of slow erosion, no signs of slow topography change. There's nothing slow about what's happening between the rock layers. If anything, there's rapid sheet erosion, but no soil accumulation, nothing. Just one rock layer flat on top of the other, that they were laid down quickly during a year-long global flood. We find fossilized foot tracks going up through the fossil record. You find a dead critter higher up. At the Grand Canyon a few years ago, I was with Dr. Snelling. We traced trilobite tracks up through a rock layer. We found a dead trilobite up higher up in the rock layer based on secular estimates 1 million years later, based on their dating of the rock layers. So by their thinking, this trilobite walked for 1 million years and then died.
That's a long walk.
That's a long walk, and it's like going to the mall.
If he had a Fitbit, he got plenty of steps in.
He got his steps in, man. He was killing it. No, it doesn't make sense geologically. It makes sense biblically. That rock layer wasn't laid down slowly. It was laid down quickly during a global flood. Mud layer full of minerals. Trilobite's trying to work his way out, not get buried alive, leaving tracks behind. Eventually, gets tired, gets stuck, becomes a fossil. And we find that over and over. That is the norm with fossilized tracks. Dead things are higher up. That's the norm. Makes sense in the biblical worldview. We find polystrate fossils, fossils that go through multiple rock layers, tree fossils that go through 3 different rock layers, supposedly separated by hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, how long does a dead tree stand up? 5 years, 10, 20, 100, but not thousands, definitely not millions. And so I could literally go on, but we find amazing evidence in geology, in paleontology, in archaeology, in genetics, in biology, and all the hardcore sciences and history things we look at. We find great evidence that confirms the Bible's clear history. And so the evidence is there. But a couple of things I'll say here as we begin to get kind of towards the end. Number one, I keep using the word confirm. Please note, dear friends, you don't prove the Bible. The Bible is the ultimate authority. If you could use some outside source to prove the Bible, that outside source would be the authority over the Bible. Therefore, God's word would not be the ultimate authority.